In our town, you can tell the make of a truck by the way its engine settles after the turn. Dodges idle like they're chewing, Chevys like they're thinking about it, Fords like they've already decided. The morning I stopped being married, a Ford decided in my driveway at 4019 a.m. The sound reached me first, low, confident, wrong. The porch light on our little yellow house in Pine Bend threw a tired circle on the gravel. Through the bedroom curtain, I saw the outline of a cab that wasn't mine, and the top edge of a rear window decal, a mountain range that wasn't ours. Something moved behind the curtain like a deer considering the fence. I didn't go in. I didn't throw the door open and become the loudest thing on our street. I kept rolling past our driveway in my old Tacoma like a man who'd left his wallet at the gas station. I turned right on Alder, right again on Cottonwood, then tucked the Tacoma into the gravel pullout behind Grady's Feed, where a plywood sign still promises chicks in April even though it's August. I sat with my hand on the shifter and my foot not doing anything helpful. The hospital would want me by 7. The south boiler loop had been whining like a harmonica, and the ore chillers sulk when it's this hot. My body knows how to fix rattles if they can be solved with rags and valves and attention. What I don't know how to fix is my own voice when I'm afraid of hearing it. I texted my sister June because June is made of backbone and good bets. She runs the bar at the Outfitter and has thrown out 3 men larger than the jukebox. I wrote, "You awake?" She called. "You never ask me that unless you've already decided I am," she said. "What'd you break?" "I think Mara's breaking us," I said. Saying it out loud didn't explode the truck. It just made breathing a little more expensive. "Say the facts," June said, bartender voice, the one that keeps fights from turning into cops. F-150 in our drive at 419, I said. Mountain decal. Someone moved behind the bedroom curtain when I turned the corner. I drove past. "You didn't go in." "No." "Good. What do you want to do about it?" "I don't know." "Then do nothing," she said, "for 24 hours. Go to work, fix the thing that squeals, eat a sandwich, let the world show you its next card." I hung up and watched the sun begin to comb the ridge. When I came back around, the Ford was gone and my house looked like a house again. Mara was in the kitchen in a sweatshirt and underwear, hair in a knot that wasn't any of mine. The coffee smelled like forgiveness if you don't think too hard. "You're up early," she said, pouring 2 mugs like muscle memory could keep anything honest. "South Loop's singing again," I said. "What about you?" She smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. "Inventory. Never ends." Mara is an artist who turned craft into business because we can't afford to be precious in Pine Bend. On Main, her shop smells like beeswax and mountain air the factory made. She throws mugs with glazes that make tourists say the word rustic like an apology. She says things like vendor and wholesale in the same voice she used to say sky and water. It never bothered me. I like that she built something with her hands and then learned how to sell it without hating herself. I drank coffee, kissed her temple like a man whose life fits, and drove to the hospital with my throat feeling like a cut I'd given myself by accident. The hospital's old wing was born in the 70s and still acts like it. The mechanical room hums like an animal with patience. I checked the boiler loop and found the wine, a small air bubble hiding in a high elbow like a lazy idea. I bled it out into a rag and listened to the room settle. I labeled the elbow with a paint pen because future me appreciates breadcrumbs. That kind of attention can make you feel like you control things you don't. At lunch, I pulled into the lot behind the artisan market where Mara gets her wholesale orders. There was no F-150 in the alley. There was a text from her at 12,004, "Love you." Food truck tacos? We can split the green chili pork. The normalcy hit me like a hand on my shoulder. I didn't want. I typed back, "Works wild, rain check." June sent a photo without comment. It was the angle of our bedroom window from across the street. Time stamped 4017 a.m., the edge of a truck cab in the frame. The glare made it hard to make out make and model. The decal I'd seen was visible if you knew you were looking for it. Under the photo, she wrote, "You either go to the lake or you rot. Choose." "I have work," I said when I called. "You have a brother who will cover," she said. "Our brother Eli does carpenter things for the county and can be persuaded to ignore his own schedule if June promises him chili and tells him I'm stupid. Go tonight. I'll check on her. I'll keep a log. I'm better at logs than you." "You're better at most things than me," I said. "That's just because I'm taller in heels," she said, and hung up because she believes decisions don't like to be watched. I didn't pack well. A hoodie, 2 flannels, 1 extra pair of jeans, socks in a grocery bag because I couldn't find the decent duffel. I put my Leatherman in my pocket because I put my Leatherman in my pocket when I don't know what else to do. The drive to Lake Aspen doesn't take long if you don't think, and I had practice. The cabin is 2 rooms of old pine, and the stove complains before it warms you. I lit it anyway because the ritual is the part that counts. The lake was slate, and the wind felt like a voice that wants you quiet. I didn't call Mara. I wrote June here. She wrote back, "I'll be invisible. If she leaves, I'll be the shadow." The first night I slept like someone on a boat tied at both ends that still rocks. The second morning, I ate eggs from a cast iron skillet that steals heat and gives it back when you're not looking. I walked down to the dock and watched a pair of loons argue about nothing any human would understand. I thought about the Ford, about the way Mara had started saying we and meaning her shop. We're hosting a trunk show. We have to restock candles. We need to be gentle with ourselves about burnout. She'd said burnout, like a person who'd rehearsed the line and bought herself flowers after. At 10, June called. "You wanted facts," she said. "I have some." "Go," I said, and braced. "Thursday night," she said. "Your bedroom light went on at 2:05, off at 2:08, garage door at 2:12. She left in her Subaru, east on Maple, parked behind the riverfront condos across from the Outfitter. Apartment 3C, 3rd floor corner. I didn't go up. I don't trespass. I'm charming, not stupid." "Okay," I said. My voice sounded like I'd put it in the fridge and forgotten it there. "Friday night," she continued, businesslike because that is the only way to thread a needle like this without bleeding out. Same pattern. She left at 11:53. I waited across the street in the laundromat with a folding basket like a movie extra. At 12:01 a.m., she came out of 3C with a man. He locked the door. He put his hand on her back like he owned the right-of-way. I filmed for 12 seconds. She walked north. He turned to go back in. I got his face and the door number. The camera picked up the riverfront directory sign. I have the video. Timestamp says 12,001. Check your texts. My phone chimed. June's video was steady because June is steady. Mara in a sweatshirt I recognized, hair in a knot, laugh ghosting her mouth even when she wasn't making a sound. A man with the body language of a person who expects to be forgiven. He turned to lock 3C, and the lens caught the directory board, Ridgeline Fiber, Suite 101, above the mailboxes with a logo they designed on a budget. June had framed it on purpose. She knows what to feed a courtroom, even if the courtroom is just your kitchen. She texted me, "I miss you," at 12,001, I said, and the numbers didn't feel like a coincidence. They felt like the only thing left that believed in truth. June blew out a breath. "Okay," she said. "Okay, you still at the lake?" "Well, I'm still here." "Stay through Sunday," she said. "Come back Monday. Be neat. Don't be dramatic. Bring a folder." "A folder." "Men in rooms respect paper more than tears," she said. "You're going to need a place to put the facts you don't want to drop." I walked the lake in a big, slow loop, the way people do who are trying not to think about timelines and door numbers. I thought about the first time I met Mara. She was selling mugs at the farmer's market with names carved in the bottom, and she misspelled mine and then pretended she'd invented a better one. I thought about the way she had started putting her phone face down and the way her laugh had tightened into a pitch meant for small spaces. I thought about our house, the one we painted yellow because she said yellow makes it harder for sadness to take long naps. I didn't cry. I am not against crying. It just didn't happen to me that day. What happened was that a plan arrived in my head like a mechanic who doesn't knock. I am not an investigator. I am a man who writes down when pumps squeal and which tenant scuffs the elevator the most. But I know how to build timelines for things that break in the dark. I made a list on a yellow legal pad that used to live under the phone in my parents' kitchen. Proof, date, source. I wrote, Strange Ford, 4019 a.m., photo from June. Bedroom light, 2005-2008, June's log. Garage door 2001, June's log. Subaru leaves 11,530 p.m. Friday, June's log. Video, Mara Pusmail exiting 3C at 12,001 a.m. Ridgeline fiber, sign visible. Text from Mara to me, 12,001 a.m. I miss you. I left space. Evidence likes to arrive in pairs. I called Eli next because sometimes a brother who knows everybody is better than a phone book. Eli hunts with half the county for the sole purpose of learning secrets and then pretending he doesn't know any. You know anyone at Ridgeline? I asked. Fiber people. They keep the internet from dying. Caleb Nolan, Eli said without needing to think. Plays drop-in hockey, drinks light beer that makes him feel like an athlete, married to the woman who runs the salon by the post office, wears a ball cap like it was glued on. Why? No reason, I said. Eli let that hang there like laundry. You want me to be dumb about this or helpful? Helpful, I said. My buddy Keegan works in their warehouse, he said. He loads spools. Says the engineers are on call in week-long shifts and brag about never sleeping, but somehow always find the time to drink. They've got a policy that says no drinking or social stuff when you're on call. Legal made them write it big after a guy missed an outage last winter and the clinic couldn't pull charts for an hour. I wrote policy, on call, no fraternization in my list and underlined it because policy is a lever. Men in small towns understand better than feelings. June, who knows people without having to try, texted me the next card. It was a screenshot from a public Facebook group for the ice rink, a photo of a man on a couch at 1002 a.m. with a beer held up like a flag. Caption, on-call life, just me and the network and one cold buddy. The man was the man from the video. Different shirt, same mouth. The timestamp bobbed under the picture like a buoy. I added it to the list. 1002 a.m. selfie with beer. Public post. June sent a second screenshot 5 minutes later because she apparently didn't believe in giving me time to breathe. This one was a Slack status. It didn't come from her, she'd asked. Keegan pulled this, she wrote. The Slack profile showed Caleb's face and the green dot and a status. On call. Page me first. Set to do not disturb except priority. The time under it read 11:54 p.m., Friday. Keegan doesn't want to be in it, her text went on. He'll deny. But if HR sees it, it's real. Keegan was smart. I didn't intend to throw him under any bus. I printed the screenshot and cropped the little name on the browser tab like it would help me sleep. Facts are heavy and don't care whose back they ride in on. Last piece. I opened Ridgeline's website and scrolled past stock photos of fiber, glowing like heaven, and community, used like a punctuation mark. Under careers, then employee handbook, there was a PDF public. They had posted it after a county grant required transparency in hiring. I downloaded. Section 9.2 On-Call Duty Conduct. Employees on call must refrain from alcohol consumption and social engagements that impair response times or professional judgment. Fraternization with customers during on-call duty is prohibited. I printed it and highlighted the part that mattered like I was in school and accidentally glad about it. I slid everything into a blue folder because June told me men in rooms respect paper, and because blue feels like meetings and outcomes. I slept the second night like someone had finally agreed to hold one end of a heavy thing. In the morning, I cleaned the skillet with sand because that's how Dad did it when he took us here and we didn't have soap. Then, I drove back to Pine Bend in time for church and skipped church because sometimes the only way to be respectful is to stay home. Mara was at the kitchen table stripping labels off candles. She looked up and her face did two things at once. The corners held relief. The middle held a fear I recognized in myself. She reached for me. I set the keys down and kept my hands on the counter like I was pinning a butterfly for science. I went to the lake, I said. I noticed, she said, trying to smile. I missed you. You texted me that, I said, at 12:01. She didn't pretend not to know the number. She just breathed, slow. I'm sorry, she said. I don't have a story that makes it less than it is. I don't have a noble reason beyond. I was lonely and I wanted my face to show up in a room that wasn't ours, and I told myself it would be small, and then it wasn't. His name is Caleb, I said. She closed her eyes once, like she was thanking someone for something they didn't actually give her. Yes, she said. He was on call, I said. He had a beer in his hand at 1002, and his Slack said, "Page me first." You're going to tell his wife, she said, not as a question. I'm going to tell his employer, I said. His wife deserves to know, and I'll make sure she does. But first, I'm going to make sure the guy who keeps our town's network breathing doesn't do it drunk and busy with someone else's spouse. Is this about revenge? She asked, and she didn't load it with judgment, just curiosity, like I was a stranger ordering something wild in a diner. It's about policy, I said, and held up the folder because I needed my hands to be doing something acceptable. You marry into a town. You marry into the way it works. We have rules because when power goes out in January, the clinic still needs to pull a chart. He was on call and drinking. He was on call and in my driveway. He can be reckless on his own time, not on ours. She nodded like she remembered. We were the kind of people who wrote words on the inside of our rings and forgot them long before we took them off. Do you want me to beg? She said. No, I said. I want you to move out for a bit while I figure out whether being kind to you helps me or hurts me. I want you to stop posting photos of our house on the shop account like the light on the counters makes us safe. I want you to pick up your wheel from the garage because it's not mine to look at anymore. She cried like someone who doesn't like to in front of other people. I am sorry, she said. No adjectives. Me too, I said, and meant it. After she took a bag to her friend's place by the river where the geese will scream at her in the mornings like a penance, I called Ridgeline. I didn't ask for Caleb. I asked for HR. A man named Peter answered, voice that had been to seminars. Human resources, he said, and managed to sound like he regretted both words. My name is Nathan, I said. I'm calling about a policy issue involving an on-call engineer and a conflict of interest. I have dates, times, a video, and a copy of your policy. I'd like to bring them to you so you can be the ones who have to decide what your rules are for. Silence is different when someone takes notes inside it. He said, Are you an employee? No, I said. I'm a husband who works maintenance at the hospital. I am trying to be reasonable before I try anything else. I can see you this afternoon, he said, 3 o'clock. If you have digital copies, bring a drive. If you have paper, bring the paper. I'd also like to contact his spouse. I have her number, I said. Her salon is by the post office. Her name is Maddie. I can call her now if you want the choice to be yours. I'd prefer you invite her, he said softly. It is kinder if she hears what she needs to hear in a room where we can act. I called Maddie and rehearsed a sentence before I said it, so I wouldn't make her carry my guilt in addition to what she was already about to pick up. My name is Nathan, I said. I'm calling because I am going to Ridgeline at 3 with a folder. Your husband will be in the room. So will HR. You don't owe me anything, least of all belief. But you deserve not to find out in a parking lot. She was quiet for 3 heartbeats. Thank you, she said. I'll be there. I showered and put on the good jeans because that is how you tell a room you aren't there to explode. I slid the papers into the blue folder June had left on my porch like a casserole. I added 2 photos of the strange Ford in our driveway from June's first morning, printed at the drugstore, because sometimes glossy lies better flat. I filled a USB stick with the video and the screenshots and labeled it Ridge Line. Incident, like I was already filing it. At 2:45, I parked across from Ridgeline in a lot that used to be a diner. The sky had that high, hard Montana blue that makes you feel like you should be forgiven for less. I sat for a minute and watched a line of clouds drag its feet over the ridge. I thought about the boiler loop, the way air hides where no one looks, and how easy it is to call the squeal the problem when the problem is the bubble. I took a breath. I took the folder. I walked in. Ridgeline's lobby smelled like new carpet and coffee that had been poured an hour ago by someone who believed in second chances. A map of the county's fiber backbone took up a wall, all bright lines and promises. A woman at the front desk looked at my folder, then at my face, and said, "Peter will be right out," like she practiced the softness in the sentence. He came with a notebook under his arm and posture that said, "I have sat with worse. 40s, wedding ring, careful eyes." "Nathan?" he said, offering a hand that didn't try to convince me of anything. "That's me," I said. The folder in my grip felt heavier than paper. "We can use the small conference room," he said. "If you need water, it's on the credenza. I'll bring in our IT lead for 5 minutes if we review digital items." "And Maddie?" I asked. Saying her name made me feel like I'd been entrusted with a live wire. "I called," he said. "She's on her way." The conference room was glass on 2 sides and painted a sensible gray on the others. A TV hung on one wall for slides that usually make people feel like they're collaborating. A small tray with pens and tissues sat in the corner. I've sat in rooms like that at the hospital. They try to be neutral, and it almost never works. Peter closed the door. "2 things before we begin," he said. "First, thank you for coming to us instead of the internet. Second, we will take this seriously, but I am going to be boring in ways that look like caution. We have to do it right." "Boring is my love language," I said. "I work maintenance in a building that needs boring to save lives." We sat. I set the folder down and ran my finger along the edge to keep my hands from auditioning for a part they weren't going to get. "I brought a timeline," I said. "Dates, sources, no adjectives." He smiled like he wished he could hire that sentence. "Go ahead." I laid out the photographs first. The F-150 in my driveway at 4019 a.m., mountain range decal on the back window, the way my porch light made the gravel look like a confession. June's notes on the back of each print with times and little arrows that made a story feel like it belonged to more than one person. "This is for context," I said. "I didn't kick in the door. I left. I went to our cabin for 2 nights to decide whether I wanted to be a man who collects receipts or throws things. My sister stood watch because she knows how to hold a line." He nodded like he knew sisters or wished he had one. "Okay." I slid the video next, my hands careful like you are when you pass a baby to a man whose second child is due in the fall. He plugged the drive into the TV's little brain and let the picture come up. The hallway of the riverfront condos. The placard with the mailboxes and the Ridgeline logo tucked above them like a stamp. Then the door, 3C. Mara in a sweatshirt. I know, hair loose, eyes taking the world in and not flinching yet. Caleb behind her. He turned to lock up. The camera caught his face and the careless laugh on it that men make when they believe life doesn't mind being cheated on. The timestamp, 12:01 a.m. Peter looked down at his notebook and wrote that number. 12:01, he said softly. And at 12:01, I said, holding up my phone, she texted me, "I miss you." He took that in the way quiet people do. No performance, just room made for truth. I slid the Slack status screenshot across next. This came from a warehouse guy who doesn't want to be in this story, and I don't intend to put him in it. The point is the status. On call. Page me first. Set to do not disturb, except priority. 11:54 p.m. Peter's jaw moved like a gear clicked. He wrote again, "And the drinking?" I handed him the print of the Facebook post, the one with the couch and the beer and on-call life in the caption, like it was a daring joke. 1:02 a.m., I said, while the town's network belongs to him. He studied it with his silence on. Then he flipped open the policy printout I'd highlighted. Section 9.2, the words that mattered in yellow like a school bus. Employees on call must refrain from alcohol consumption and social engagements that impair response times or professional judgment. Fraternization with customers during on-call duty is prohibited. This is ours, he said. You pulled it from our site? Yes, I said. It's public. He nodded and looked at the drive again. He didn't touch it. He didn't push it away. He let it sit like a stone on a table. The door opened, and Maddie stepped in wearing a denim jacket, the exact color of resolve. She had a kind of beauty that makes space for other people to be people. The sort of face you underestimate until you realize you've told it everything it needs to know about you. She glanced at me, and then at Peter, and then at the TV, which was still paused on 3C's hallway like a stage with the curtain stuck. "Hi," she said. "I'm Maddie." "Thank you for coming," Peter said. She nodded, sat, folded her hands. Her nails were short with clear polish. They looked like they'd worked harder than they wanted to this year. "I'm not going to break anything," she said. "We can do this." Peter opened the door again and asked IT to step in. A woman with a tight ponytail and a badge that said Saskia walked in with the steady air of someone who has turned off access for men who thought they'd never be turned off. "If we need to lock any accounts during this conversation," Peter said, "Saskia can assist." "Okay," Maddie said. She had her own composure. Watching her hold it made me want to become the kind of person who remembered the names of women like her for the rest of my life. Peter took a breath that sounded like paper being put into a folder. "I've asked Caleb to join us," he said. "He'll be here in a minute. We'll present what we have. He'll speak. We'll act. No one will yell." "That last part is not in my control," Maddie said, a small smile on the edges of something sharp. "But I'll try." Caleb arrived with the half-defiant ease of someone who has been the cleverest person in his department for too long. He walked in with his phone in his hand and his ring on, hat off, eyes flicking to me like I'd cut him off in a parking lot. Then he saw Maddie and put his face into a shape that looked like grief rehearsing for empathy. "B," he said. "Pet names are weapons when they're used in rooms that don't owe you affection." "Don't," she said. "One word. Flat. You can call me Maddie like everyone else." He opened his mouth like he had a script and realized the lights had changed. Peter gestured to the chair. "Caleb, thank you for coming," he said, formal like a doctor in a corridor. "We're going to look at some items and talk about policy." "Is this a tribunal?" he said, laugh bubbling up from somewhere he thought was charming. "It's a meeting," Peter said. "Sit down." Caleb sat like the chair had asked permission. Peter lifted the blue folder. "Nathan brought a timeline and several exhibits," he said. "We'll view them. If you want to deny any, say so. But I will verify internally regardless. Maddie is present as a courtesy. Courtesy is not the same as consent." He hit play. The hallway. The placard. The door. The faces. The time. Caleb looked at the screen like it was someone else's idea of him. "That's my place," he said, as if naming it absolved him. "Your place," Maddie repeated, fresh information like a slap that woke her up even as she stayed seated. She had thought, maybe, that it was a hotel, a friend's couch, something temporary and shameful. Hearing him claim it as a place he lived with his choices gave the room a new gravity. Peter toggled to the Slack status. "On call," he read, 11:54 p.m. Caleb tried the grin most men have for stadiums and bonfires. "It just means I'm the first page," he said. "Keegan likes to show off statuses. He probably grabbed this as a gotcha." "No," Maddie said. "Nathan got it. Keegan didn't. You did this all by yourself." Peter moved to the printed post with the beer at 1:02. "This is public," he said. "Do you contest that it's yours?" "It's a joke," Caleb said, jaw tightening. "Everyone knows on-call is a vibe. We don't drink hard. We stick close. We're fine." "You had a beer," Peter said. Not angry, just correct. "You had a beer while you were on call. You left your residence to socialize with a customer while you were on call. Our policy is not a vibe. It's a policy." "You can't fire me for having a beer," he said. "My numbers are the best on the team. Ask Saskia. Ask anyone. I am the one who keeps this map on the wall from being a bonfire." Saskia looked him in the eye. "I can keep the map from burning without your beer, Caleb," she said. "We all can." Maddie's face did something small and precise, like a person folding a letter and putting it in her purse because she couldn't read it right now. "Did you at least use protection?" she asked. "Let me have one mercy." Caleb leaned back like chairs or shields. "What is this, church?" he said. "This is my job. It's none of your." "It is," Peter said, and his voice finally arrived at the note I had been waiting to hear. "It is my job when you're on call and drinking. It is my job when you are on call and prioritizing social near a client over being available for the network. It is my job when your choices expose the company to risk that could hit a clinic's EMR or an elderly customer's peers unit while you're not in a state to respond. It is also my job when you fraternize with a customer while on call. We wrote that clause for exactly this reason." Caleb looked at me. "You," he said. "You could have come to me, man to man." "The last time a man said, man to me," I said, "it was in a lobby with a blue folder and he was asking for mercy he wouldn't have kept for me if our positions were reversed. I'm not out to perform masculinity with you. I'm here to put your badge on this table." Maddie blinked like she might cry and then didn't. "Caleb," she said, "you can explain it to me in the car, not here, not where the rules are printed." Peter stood. "Caleb Nolan," he said, and the room became a courtroom just because a person did his job. "I'm placing you on unpaid administrative leave effective now, pending a formal investigation. Surrender your badge to me. Saskia will disable your VPN and Slack. Do not access any customer systems. Do not log into any company devices. We will schedule a meeting Monday where you can bring representation if you wish. If the investigation confirms what we have seen here, your employment will be terminated for violation of Section 92.2. Caleb's face emptied out. "Men practice being angry. We rarely practice being empty." He looked down at his lanyard like it had been his all along and someone was stealing it. He unclipped it and put it on the table with 2 fingers, like it might burn him. Saskia tapped keys on the small laptop she'd placed at the edge of the table as if she were playing notes she'd learned in childhood. "Access disabled," she said. "Slack deactivated. Pager duty revoked." Peter looked at me. "Is there anything else you want to place on the record?" he asked. I slid one last photo across. The Ford's tailgate in my driveway. The decal, a mountain range with edges too sharp to belong to a place you actually want to live. "This," I said, "because I want to remember that I didn't kick in the door. I left. I came back with paper." Peter nodded and closed the folder. Like you close a book you'll read again later even though you're going to hate it. Thank you, he said. We'll handle it from here. Maddie stood up and smoothed her jacket as if it had asked her to. Do you need a ride? She asked him. Kindness, an old reflex she was trying to set down. He looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. I'll walk, he said. Good, she replied. She turned to me. If you hadn't called me, I would have found out in a salon chair from somebody who heard it from a cousin. That's a cruelty I didn't have to survive today. Thank you. You don't owe me anything, I said. But if you ever need someone to roll paint over a wall he never wanted to look at again, I'm your guy. She gave me half a smile and left the room like a parade with no music. Peter escorted Caleb out, their silhouettes reflected in the glass like a simple sketch, man and consequence. In the lobby, the map of fiber lines gleamed like Christmas. An elderly couple sat on the bench by the window arguing quietly about whether the internet is one word or two. I sat down across from them because it felt like a witness stand that wouldn't ask questions. June texted, Well? Badge on the table, I wrote. She sent one heart, the color of a bruise healing. Proud of you, she added. Proud of doing it neat. I walked out into the dry gold of late afternoon. Pine Bend's Main Street did its best impression of a town in a movie that ends with a parade. The barber pole turned like it had a job, only it understood. I drove home and found the house like I had left it. The ring on the counter where Mara had slid it into a silence that neither of us could fill. A half-full mug by the sink, a note on the fridge that said inventory list on the clipboard and looked like a museum plaque for a different life. Mara came by at 8 with her sister and collected 2 plants in a stack of bowls she'd thrown in the winter, the glaze of blue that pretends sky can be held. We stood on the porch and arranged the air between us. I heard, she said. Maddie texted me. How is she? I asked. Burning clean, Mara said. She's the kind of woman who knows how to do it without setting her whole neighborhood on fire. Good, I said. She deserves a neighborhood that doesn't make her pay twice. We didn't try to post-mortem whatever we'd been. We had both been raised to know when to leave the body alone. The next week, Ridgeline sent Caleb an official letter. I know, because Peter called to tell me they'd closed the loop, and because in a town like ours, the loop reports to your doorstep eventually, whether you invite it or not. Termination for cause, violation of on-call conduct, fraternization with customer while on-call, alcohol consumption while on-call. Caleb's name came off the on-call rotation, off the Slack directory, off the emergency pager. I didn't enjoy it. I slept. Maddie moved in with her sister off Birch Street and painted a wall a color that looks like the inside of a new plum. We ran into each other outside the post office 2 weeks later. She was carrying a box of salon samples and a bag of bagels like a person who has learned the art of groceries as armor. How are you? She asked. Hungry at normal times again, I said. You? Learning what to do with my hands during commercials, she said. Also, the salon took me to lunch and did not bring up anything I didn't bring up first. That should be written into policy somewhere. We stood there too long to be only polite. Then we said the right things to make the sidewalk let us go. I started therapy on a Thursday because people who fix pipes tend to believe they are exempt from leaks. Dr. Hale has a chair that looks like it could survive 5 generations and a clock that does not tick. He asked me the question that matters on the first day in a voice that did not make me want to perform for him. What do you want from me? He said. I want to make boundaries that aren't punishments, I said. I want to be a man who uses rules to protect people, not just to feel right. He nodded and wrote it down. Here's a hard one, he said. You punished no one in that lobby. You enforced a standard. You separated behavior from worth. It didn't feel noble, I said. It wasn't, he said. It was necessary. We made a short list I could carry in my pocket. Use evidence once, then put it away. Do not build a museum. Eat on schedule. Sleep even if memory wants to negotiate. Exercise before you're angry. Do not answer texts after 10 p.m. that try to make your heart a courtroom. If you can help it, never say man to man unless you're offering to carry lumber. Mara and I met a mediator who smelled like tea and didn't perform empathy like a circus trick. We sat in a room with soft chairs and split our life into manageable piles. I kept the house and the truck and the tools my grandfather had used on fences that still stand. She took the shop equipment that didn't need my eyes on it and the lease on Maine. We spun the retirement accounts like wheels and let the math decide what fairness looks like when you're tired. When the decree came, it was an email with a PDF and the anticlimactic finality of a parking ticket. We texted each other a thumbs up and then took turns not walking past each other's windows for a while. June took me to the river at dusk and handed me a beer, and I looked at it for a long time before I took it, and then I put it back and we both laughed like men who know better and sometimes do better. She told me no one at the bar was allowed to tell the story like they were in it. Her rule, she said. We're not the kind of place that eats its own, she said. We're the kind of place that lets men make choices and live with them without inviting all the neighbors to narrate. At the hospital, the South Loop stayed quiet. I labeled 3 more elbows because breadcrumbs help future me and make present me feel like someone has my back. The OR called me down to clear a vent once, and I stood on the ladder and looked at the ceiling and felt, for the first time in a while, that something was going to work the way it was supposed to for more than 5 minutes. People talk. They always do. But the miracle of a small town is that after they talk, they help you move a couch without making you pay for the narrative you didn't choose. Ridgeline posted a revised policy memo about on-call conduct with clearer words and fewer places to hide. The hospital CTO sent a thank you to their leadership for rapid cooperation. I didn't get CC'd. I didn't need to. The fiber stayed lit. The clinic pulled charts. The world went back to arguing about whether the new cafe is too fancy for a place like ours. If you are waiting for the part where I became a better man, it's smaller than you think. I became a man who can leave a house at 4 in the morning and not write a scene people will whisper about for 20 years. I became a man who trusts paper more than shouting. I became a man who takes his dog, June's gift, a ridiculous mutt named Tippett, down to the lake on Sundays and throws sticks and lets himself be bored in a way that feels like health. I became a man who can look at a blue folder and not relive the room. Just remember it like a page in a manual that saved someone's fingers. Mara texted me in the spring a picture of a mug she'd made. The glaze broke the way she'd been trying to make it break for months. She wrote, "Got it." I wrote back, "Proud of you. It was not reconciliation. It was respect." Here's the inventory, because endings are less about morals than they are about countable things. 1 blue folder, retired to the back of a drawer. 1 job saved for someone who takes it as seriously as I do. 1 marriage ended with more paperwork than shouting. 1 sister who will film the exact 12 seconds you need and not tell you you're a coward for leaving when you had to. 1 woman named Maddie who deserved better and started expecting it. 1 map of fiber lines that keep our town a little less alone at night. 1 man who didn't kick in the door because he didn't want to be the loudest thing in the story. That's enough. Would you have taken it to HR or kept it private and prayed the network didn't hiccup on a night your grandmother needed the clinic? Would you have called his wife in the parking lot or invited her to the table? Tell me in the comments whether using a policy to end a bad thing is petty or smart, whether you'd press play in a glass room or let the lake keep a secret for you. If this story sat with you, hit like so. It finds the next person listening to a truck decide in their driveway at 4:19 a.m. Subscribe for more, and share it with the friend who thinks on-call is a vibe instead of a promise.